So have any of you seen in the tubes, have any of you seen the bikini-clad lady that says, "Are you beach ready?"
Yeah.
That's not the advert I'm going to talk about.
We just wanted to get our attention.
The one I am going to talk about, make me feel guilty. I'm just not beach ready. So it impacts me as a boy. No, but I saw this one, so I thought it was quite funny as I was trying to corral you back in. And it's got a beautiful man, as of course it would have. And it says, "Boys update their status, real men have status." I'm not saying that, I'm saying I haven't got status because I couldn't get you back in the room. But then I thought this was quite funny. So this is all about props, isn't it? So here we have, what were we talking about, social media? There we have Richard Brand, and Ed Miliband. That'll do his street cred somewhat, some good. But then I thought this was quite funny when we're talking about coaching, and then here we have Scottish Widow saying, "Change your life in an hour." There you go. So we'll get on to some of those questions. Because I met this guy the other day, and it's not name dropping, I just thought it was quite useful. Because tools are, for any of you that are coaches, I'm qualified in 13, 14 different tools. It's really worth getting yourself tooled up. Because tools are useful, because companies quite like paying for stuff, for things that help their people learn, develop and grow. But actually there's something tangible at the end of it, there's a report. That's quite good. And what I love about what Roger's done, and he's called the corporate philosopher. He's done some really good stuff actually. But he's got a tool that's free. So you can actually send it and have a look at it. And it's all about ethics. So we were talking about ethics a little bit earlier. We were talking about culture. His big thing is about we need more ethics. And he's doing a lot of work with the likes of Barclays, Citibank, Rio Tinto, the big banking. So he works a lot in the financial services industry. But I just saw that in my bag because I've not read it. I just thought it'd be useful because it's a tool. Roger Steer, sorry. Yeah, so S-T-E-A-R-E, corporate philosopher. So it's a free tool. It's part of his research, and you get to kind of work out which one of the 9 archetypes is yours. I think mine was tosser. Sorry, did I say that? Impulse control. Okay, what, if anything, any thoughts or ideas or any observations about for any of you around some of the areas that you might want to think about for yourself?
What are the other 2 C's?
Very good. Thank you. There's 10 C's, but the two most prevalent is change. These organisations always talk about change. And then the other thing that you can really help with is capability. So you can help people with capability and change, but there's all sorts of other C's. I won't bore you with them right now, so thank you. But there is a C for a different model, and it uses a certain vowel, and it's the A. You will, if you're an entrepreneur, the thing you've got to watch out for are what I call the can'ts. You meet a lot of people that tell you can't do something. All my life, as I was going, I've had to let go of people who've told me I can't be this person. I can't work only 4 months a year and survive and actually thrive. And I think it's rubbish. I'm just writing an article about thriving in life. So just, if you join up on Leader Excellence, you'll get it. It will come out in the next month, in the next couple of weeks. So it's all about the 10 principles of thriving. And I wrote that genuinely just before Easter. I was with one of my female CEOs, and she was just in floods of tears. She's a co-CEO. Have you ever heard of this, co-CEOs? There's this trend around, co-CEOing. Doesn't work. Just doesn't work because the power base is just all over the place. It's really difficult. And just genuinely, she was in floods of tears. And when you're like, bloody hell, that's hard, and I helped her as you would. And then I left, and I was just like, God. If this lady's suffering and feeling this, what are other people in that organisation feeling? And then what are other people feeling? And so I just sat down and thought, if it was to be the other way, if it was to not be this world that she's in right now, what would it look like? And I wrote down 9 principles. And I think the 9th principle was, if you're the CEO, you create the environment for everyone else to be like this. And the 10th principle is, forget my 9 principles and create your own. Because I'm a big believer in that. So what else? Anything else in terms of this sort of model? Anything that was useful?
Well, everything falls apart if the purpose is not right.
Yeah.
Call that purpose, other people might call that mission, or call that, but at the end of the day, you can perform and maybe not overperform, as the gentleman said, but you don't really care if you overperform if it's your mission, if it's your purpose, because whatever people says, you don't really care. And your brand and your image, you'll be glowing and you'll be shining if you know what you're standing for. And it's when you don't really know what your purpose is that actually you force yourself in performing to the norm, to the standard, or to something that you might be even good at it, but without actually pursuing the right avenue.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I think because of the whole movement in self-help and the awareness around psychology, that we've become increasingly aware of purpose. So my Darren Robson company is Arete, which is A-R-E-T-E, and I always say Arete, but it's Arete, I believe, and it's from Latin. And it's about to be the best version of yourself. So I agree with you. Look at Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, all those great philosophers. They talked about, this. They talked about having ethics. They talked about having a moral code. They talked about having a sense of purpose and legacy and contribution. However, what's happened, I think, is we've lost our way. Because actually I've met people that are being really successful and don't know why. They actually don't know why they're being successful. Because what they've done is they've focused on, so for me, I was pushing myself really hard because I wanted to get out of poverty. So I grew up in poverty. I grew up and I know what it feels like to get a knock on the door and you haven't got enough food. I know what it feels like when you get the debt collectors coming to take money from you and you haven't got any money. I go into my mum's house, where my dad lives now, and the first thing that I do, I've got better at it, but one of the first things I do is I walk into the kitchen, and what do you think I do? I look into the cupboards. I still look into the cupboards. And you just started to become aware of these triggers that I've got within me. It's because I want to make sure he's got enough food. Because I remember Saturdays in my family were wonderful because we had food, and then by Sunday we'd eaten it all. Because there was 4 of us and we were like ravenous. So I think you're right. There is, some people can, but sometimes your life plays through you and you're not aware of it. So we can, as coaches and as advisors, help people to stop and think. Get them to stop and contemplate those bigger questions, because sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they really don't. So Sir John Whitmore taught me this model, and I've adapted it somewhat. And he called this, so let me just get this right. So this is, okay, so crisis of meaning, crisis of duality. So John Whitmore's model. So up here we've got money, and I mean people that are earning excessively large amounts of money at times. So I met with I think it was around the time I did my TED talk, which was October I think last year, and a banker I was working with just got £1 million bonus, and he was bitching that he got £1 million bonus. Can you imagine that conversation? Really interesting, because he's a really good guy. But actually, the money had lost a sense of meaning, because he was bitching he wanted more. And I'm like, what do you want more money for? What else do you need it for? And it's like, no, it's about right, it's about right. But what happens is, people track up this way, and they're driven to earn a certain amount of money, or status, or recognition, whatever it is, whatever your shtick is. But actually, they're doing it in an unquestioning way. So, for me, I was working in Deloitte. I was aiming to become a partner because I thought that was my way of getting out of poverty. I'll have enough money to live my life and I'll be successful, etc., etc. And then what happened was I hit a brick wall, and I just went boom. So what I did was I started to play straight towards my values. So you can cynically say this is capitalist mindset. So unquestioned capitalist mindset. You can say that. What I'll put down here is what's called crisis of duality, as John would call it. or crisis of values. Because then what I do is, in my life, is I experience people that are social entrepreneurs. I meet a lot of coaches. Do you know, the data shows us that the average income for coaches in the UK is about $28,000, and in America it's about $30,000, $35,000. That's what the data shows us. So that's not easy. That's not, that's the sort of average with the average within the incomes in the UK, which is around the same sort of figures. So I meet a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, who've got great ideals and great ideas. But the problem is, they've got none of this. They've got no money. So there's always, what's that thing, there's always more month than money. Yeah, they're struggling, they're really struggling. And so my hypothesis is what I call, life less ordinary, which, yes, I do own the website, lifelessordinary.com, and at the moment it goes to Darren Robson, and it will be something else when I can be bothered. But this is about, I think, where we try and blend those two worlds. So what we try and do is you earn money, you get paid well to do what you do because you become a real expert, and there's real value in that for your customers. And you do it for the right reasons. You do it because it makes you feel good, you do it because it does align with who you are, your purpose, your beliefs, your values. But you do it in a way that's sustainable. Or, like I've done, is, I know that I want to help kids from poor backgrounds. Okay? I don't need a freaking psychologist to unpick my life to tell me why it is that I have this need to help kids from a poor background. Yeah? And I'm not going to make it my life's work on its own. It's part of a wider picture. But it's really important to me to go back and to give back and to help people that were like me, and to acknowledge people that were like me, like my brothers and sisters, like the community I grew up in. However, when I looked at the models, I decided that actually it's probably better that I set it up as a charity. Because I thought, well, then we can get some money in, etc., etc. However, I set out with the mindset of, we're going to make money and we're going to make a difference. Yeah, so make a difference in a moment, which is one of the phrases. And we give, you gain, we all give and grow together. That's another one of the phrases. The reality is, third year in a row, Mo Foundation is run completely sustainably. With no external grants, no external gifts. I've turned down the National Lottery on 3 or 4 occasions. They want to give us quite a large amount of money, and we've said no. Which is nuts, yeah? You're getting this offer of lots of money, and you can scale up your organisation. The reason I've said no is because I'm a control freak. The reason I've said no is because I just don't know if we can keep the essence of the organisation the same. Because we rely on the fact that we all contribute a small amount, and if we all contribute the small amount, we can make it sustainable. And there are a couple of people who get paid to be in the organisation. My trainers get paid now. They didn't for the first couple of years. So we're starting to find a way to kind of blend it and create a model where it's very values and ethical and doing the right thing and making a contribution and difference, but it's also making some money. How do we do that? 2 doors. So this comes from an organisation called Right to Sight. One of my good friends and trustees is the CEO of Right to Sight. And in his last year, in 2009, Right to Sight in Africa gave sight back to 50,000 people. So in 18 minutes, they could do a cataract operation on an eye. So they could give someone sight back in Africa. 50,000 people. And he told me this story, and he said, look, Darren, there was a surgery, and they took it from a model in India. So they learned it from a model in India. There was 2 doors. One door says, I can afford to pay, and one door says, I can't afford to pay. And you go in and you get exactly the same service. So that's the model that we've used within Mo Foundation. So if you can afford to contribute what you choose. We're not going to define it for you. This is what this course would cost you in the open market. But this is, you can do this for free. And I didn't know if it was going to work, so we just tried it and trialled it. And guess what? People are really bloody honest. People will, even if it's just 10 quid, 15 quid, even if it's not about money, they contribute because they come back and learn. We don't ask them to do anything because it's a gift. Some people say to me, oh, do you get them to sign a contract to say that they're going to give back to Mo? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a gift. I'm not going to give you a gift and then say there's a gift. But actually, what I want you to do is 10 hours of your life for the next 10 years, please, because we've given you this gift. So we don't. It's very open and freeing. And what we found is that people are very honest. People will do the right thing, whether that's because they can afford to pay a small amount to help the organisation keep going, or because they come back and contribute. But even those who don't, we don't care in the sense of we care enough that what we want them to do is improve their lives. Does that make sense? So that's an example of where I've used this model to kind of create a values-based organisation, and I've tried to take money off the table as much as possible. But a lot of your corporate clients are not in that situation. They're in organisations that are driven by a corporate mindset, and you know what I think we've got to move towards is what I call purposeful capitalism. And this is a long stretch, I don't know if we're going to get there. And here it's all about return on investment, here it's all about return on values, and here I think it's all about return on contribution. So I was with an organisation last week, where their employees are revolting, and revolting? Yeah, awful. But they're saying to them, look, we want the opportunity to make a difference here because we're not making enough difference in this organisation. So you've got to give us opportunities to actually make a contribution. And we don't mean painting sheds because we're fed up with those away days where it's about painting sheds. So there's just some thinking that I begged, borrowed, and stolen from John Whitmore. There we go. Just in case there's any of you in there. Name your sources, but I've adapted it. So anything else in terms of here before we sort of open it up to any sort of questions? Any other sort of points or thoughts?
Well, network was one thing that most people felt they needed to improve their network.
Really? Yeah. Any of you really good? Sorry, any of you really? Sorry, I apologise. It's this overcoached, haven't I? I've got to apologise to everything. Gosh. Sorry. So yeah. So talk to me about networking because I'm fascinated because I'm useless at it, which might surprise you, but I'm useless at it. So tell me what.
Well, it's that people did feel that they were useless at networking. It's not something they enjoy doing, putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
But actually, it's the one thing that will help drive the business so much as well.
Yeah. So I mean, some of you are better experts than me, but so fears. One of the biggest fears in life is public speaking. It's crazy, isn't it? Maybe not. But that's one of the biggest fears. A lot of the data sort of shows it. It's a big fear for people. One of my biggest fears is getting caught in a room with people I don't like. One of my biggest fears is getting caught in a conversation where I can't escape. Yeah. So I love speaking because then I can exit. And then any of you that really liked me, you can email me and say, Darren, I'd love to have a coffee or a conversation, and I can do that. Because what I've done is I've spent being honest here, brutally honest. I spent a lot of time when I first started out with having lots of lunches, lots of dinners with lots of people, helping lots of people, because I want to help. And it was really ineffective use of my time. Because I was helping them to a certain level, but in so doing I wasn't helping myself. Yeah, and so I had to get really focused on actually where am I trying to do? I want to spend time with my two kids. I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. My mum died at 52. I don't know how long I've got on this earth. At the end of October last year, my wife and I were in a car in Budapest. We'd just finished the AC, Association for Coaching conference at the end of Budapest. I went back to the airport to pick Mirka up, and we had a head-on collision in the back of a cab, and we were doing 100 kilometres an hour. I've got a scar under my eye here, 7-8 stitches. I had a fractured sternum, and I was unconscious for 5 minutes. I didn't wear my bloody seatbelt. So always get in a cab, wear your seatbelt. The reason I share that story is because I did not foresee it, because I had worn my seatbelt. But the taxi driver could not stop in time, pulled over to the left-hand side, straight into the path of an oncoming car. Luckily, no one died. He got very seriously injured. Broken arm, broken shoulder, Mirka got bad leg, bad neck. We were both very lucky, but we were smacked up, really smacked up. So your lights can go out any moment. So when those sorts of, when you've seen that happen in your life, and then something like that happens, it makes you realise that you can't take it for granted. So spend time with the people who really matter. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's the 5 regrets of the dying in The Guardian. Just have a look at it. I think it was a nurse, a female nurse, that interviewed 100, 200 people that were dying. It's just an incredible piece of research, and it's not out there enough. And some of the stuff it says, one of them was very specific on men, although I think that gender imbalance will balance out now with the amount of women that work, and work, bringing more income than some of their husbands often. But one of the things was I wish I hadn't worked so much. Predominantly male at that time, because obviously that was the generations before. It's not like that anymore. I wish I'd allowed myself to have more fun. I wish I'd allowed me to be who I truly am, sort of thing. It's like, it's just so profound, and we forget, you know, we don't listen to the wisdom of elders. And so it's a beautiful piece of research. It's well worth thinking about that and how you bring that into your own life, and then also into the clients that you're working with, because you'll be in service of them. You'll really help them to kind of stop and think. To this gentleman's point, you know, to help them stop and think about who they truly are. When I ask them, you know, when I ask people, you know, what do you think you'll be famous for, and then what would you like to be famous for, they often, as I said earlier, they would stop and go, oh bloody, oh God. You know, you could see internally they're going through this tension because they're going, probably not going to be remembered for what I want to be remembered for. Andy Bond, who is now the chairman of ASDA, said this. I think it was in his first 120 days, he had to let go of 2,000 people. Had to get rid of 2,000 people. A massive undertaking and a massive and colossal impact. And he said, I'll probably be remembered for that. I don't want to be remembered for that. It was a difficult period in the business, but I had to make tough decisions in order to save the business. But you know, even now, sort of 7 or 8 years on, you know, he still remembered that incident, you know, and it was burning within his mind. So what else? Anything else in terms of this model before we open it up to questions for the next 20 minutes? Nothing else. All right. So I'm just going to give you one more thought. Say, all this stuff's out there. I've got blogs and stuff. This is a model that I use for myself. You know, I genuinely haven't stolen this from anyone else. I think it is important, to your point, to think about your why. So you can call that purpose. You can call that legacy. You can call that contribution. You can call that making a difference. Call that values-based living. You know, whatever it is, right? There's all sorts of different language that says similar things. Yeah, to live the best life you can live. So arete, or lifeless order. Because in my experience of doing what I do, is I enjoy getting paid well to do what I do. I love, you know, I was talking to the client today and she was like, how's it going? I'm like, it's good, you know. She's like, you know, what do you get out of it? I'm like, well, I really enjoy the buzz of winning the work, and I enjoy doing, you know, I enjoy delivering the work, but it's not as interesting as Mo. It's like you have these honest conversations with people. It's like, yeah, I do love what I do, but the feelings that I get from Mo Foundation, when I go along on day 5 of the training and see young people, not just always young, oldest has been 66, you know, see these people achieving something they never thought they could achieve, and seeing tears in their eyes or seeing the absolute joy, that is worth so much. That is worth far more than money, and it's a wonderful thing. However, it can't feed my family. So, you know, you need to have your kind of cash cow, you know, to feed your family. Do any of you work out what you need to earn on an annual basis? How many of you do it? So how many of you put your hands up that believe it's chance? There's quite a few, you know, you're not doing it, but it's really interesting. So, you know, one of the things that I've done is I've worked out what I need to earn. Yeah? And so I've worked out what I need to earn every year. And it's not a very high number, I'll tell you. It's £33,000. So I need to earn £33,000 a year in order to sustain my life and pay for things that I need. So my mortgages and stuff like that. That's all I need. It's not a huge amount, right? Because I've cut it right down. So this is the bare minimum. I need this amount of money. It's not difficult for most people to find a way to earn that. But we often fail to do that. And then what happens is I see it with lots of people, is I've had friends that have started to earn lots of money. And then as always, their business cycle shifts. So they're used to spending at this level, and then suddenly their business, for some reason, they've got ill or they've lost a big client, their income drops down by 20, 30, 40, 50%. Anyone had that happen to them? Yeah, exactly. You know, every year I lose one of my big clients. Every year. One of my big meaty clients goes. So I keep bringing in a new meaty big client. It happens. So what you've got to learn to do is go, actually, this is going to happen. There's going to be a cycle to what I do. And what I'm not going to do is spend at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to understand what my spending is, so that at whatever point in my organisational life cycle, I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to learn to discipline myself. Why is that useful? Well, as of right now, if I don't work for 5 years, I'm in a good place. 4 years ago, I didn't have any money. I had no money left. I'd spent, because I was an employee mindset, yeah? I've been spending my income as I got it coming in, because I bought the big house in Greenwich and all those other wonderful trappings. And I let that stuff all go, because I was caught up in status. I was caught up in getting that sort of recognition from other people. So it's worth thinking about that sort of stuff on a really logical level. And then this is the simple model that I use. So here is about, I think life is about creating character, which we talked about earlier, one of the 4 C's. So think about what's the type of character you want to create. So I told you through gritty teeth the story of arrogance because I hate it. Yeah? Because I don't meet many people that like to be called arrogant. And I especially don't meet many people who get told you've got spade loads of arrogance. Right? So it taught me a big lesson about who I don't want to be, away from, yeah, in NLP terms, away from. So for me, it's all about humility. So if I've not come across as humble in any way tonight, I apologise, because I'm genuinely trying to be honest and tell you stories that I hope will be of use and of value. But what I've learned is if you look at Mo Foundation website, you can't see anything about me. So you can see I've done a TED talk, you can see that I wrote the letter about our mum, and you can see you've got our pictures, but then that's it. You can't see anything else about me. You can only see about the people that we help, the other organisations that are doing amazing work. Because we've learned that it's really not about us. We're the invisible hand. Adam Smith said it. We didn't mean it in the economic terms, but we're there to be the invisible hand, to give a space for young people and for others to champion and celebrate what they do. So you do that because you get a sense of humility and you appreciate what you've got in life. Gratitude, I mean, some of you that are in, so there's at least one person in the room who's an expert on mindfulness. You know, think about what you're grateful for. So once a week, some people tell it every night. I'd love to do that, but I'm not. I'm just not that disciplined. At least every week, just stop and think about what am I grateful for, and that's a good question to ask your clients because sometimes they get caught in I haven't got enough. So what are the 3 things I'm really grateful for? If you really want to extend it, go to 5. If you're going to get someone to try and change, don't go for 10 things, go for 1 primary thing and 2 or 3 things. So 1 primary, 2 secondary things. Because what often happens for people is they don't change, as we talked about earlier. Because your character, you're not going to shift fundamentally. Next one is about standards. So in clinical psychology, there's a driver called excelling. And the excelling driver is formed by the time you're 11 years of age. It comes from your parental and schooling experience. And if you've got the excelling driver, it's that thing that tells you you're not quite good enough. It's that thing that every time you achieve something you set out to achieve, your head has moved on and said, actually, I want you to achieve that now. It's called excelling. We've all got it on some level. Some people have got it more profoundly than others. So for me, it's all about holding high standards for yourself. So for me, it's about excellence. So excellence and mastery, personal mastery, which links in. It's about hold the high standards for yourself. And everything that you do, when people can't see you, hold high standards. I think someone was saying it earlier about it's what you do, not just what you say. It's absolutely true. We live in a world where it's viral. Most of my work comes through word of mouth. I don't do a lot on marketing. It's word of mouth, all the work that I get. Because people like them. People connect you to people like them. So if you start getting the opportunity to work with CEOs, MDs, entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever it is, whatever your shtick is, if it's someone in health, or it's doctors, it's nurses, whatever your thing is, connecting to a couple of those people, and then you're looking for another C, is connectors. Yeah, so connectors are really interesting types of people. This links into that Kant's model. Sorry, I'm going off piste, but can't help it. Connectors are wonderful people who love what you do, and they will connect you with anything from 1 to 12, 15 people. Women are often better at connecting than men. So just there's a tip for you. Women generally are better at being connectors. So you want to be finding clients that are good connectors. So they love what you do, and they'll give you an opportunity to talk to other people like them. And the other thing that I've learned to do, and it's because I want to do it anyway, I think a lot of people in our industries, and in advisory services as well, we like to help people. We like to contribute to people's lives. So contribute, help people, don't ask for anything for it. So I open source everything I do. So everything I've talked about tonight, I've written about, I write about. I meet people who have a scarcity mindset and they're fearful. Well, if I tell you my wonderful magical secret, the 7 secrets of life, you'll take it for yourself and make a lot of money for it. So I'm not going to tell you. That's not my experience, right? My experience is, share stuff with people, and then they'll share it on with other people, and then they'll come to you and say, I'd love to talk to you about this, I'd love to have a conversation with you, because something you said on point 2 of page 4 really resonated with me, and I'd love you to do that. And the other thing is that there's very few people who can actually get off their arse and make something happen in the world if it's not theirs. Yeah? You know, most people are like, I've got an idea and I want to bring that idea to the world. They're like, oh, I might adapt some of your ideas and bring those in, but actually I'm not going to take your whole idea and steal it. Sometimes it happens, but invariably it doesn't, in my experience. So openly share stuff. And then the last one is links to what we've been talking about, some of the insights from Mindset of the CEO, is that you've got to have a voice, you've got to have a brand, you've got to get exposure. So you've got to get to do opportunities to talk at things, conferences, video webinars, whatever it is, or build a platform to kind of champion what you do, or, you know, as I've done with May Foundation and we've done with the AC, is build a platform for everyone else. And then you're the power behind that. You're the invisible hand, yeah, that you create that network on some level. Does that make sense? So this is the model that I've just, this is happening genuinely, this is what I use. Someone said to me the other day, they said, yeah, it's really interesting, Darren. And they said, can I adapt your model? I said, yeah, of course you can. Like through gritty teeth. They went, oh shit, I'm part of the Illuminati. So there you go. So yeah, so there you go. So there you go. I'm part of the Illuminati. I never, you know when you're like, I never saw that. So there must be something about circles and triangles that just inherently draws us in. So that's the model. That's the model that I've developed for myself. You know, what I want to say to you is build your own models. It always surprises me how people like to live their lives through models. Personally, I like to create my own model of life. I like reading people like all sorts of different people stuff, but then I like to kind of pull it in for myself and build my own models. So what I'd say to you is build your own models and share those openly with people. And don't be afraid to do that as well. Don't be afraid to kind of put your voice out there. And the other thing is, as I said earlier, was do a piece of research that's really focused in on that target audience, because suddenly you then become the expert on CEOs, and you've never worked with a CEO in your life at that point. Is that useful? There you go, so that's it for now. I think we've got to stop for drinks, unless there's a couple of questions. I think we've got time for a couple of questions.
Hi there, thanks for the talk, for thought. Firstly, can you share the website for your organization?
Yeah.
And second question is, what do you find most challenging working with
Getting through the door, first off, is the most challenging thing, because there's lots of people that guard them. So top tip is, so Tracy, who's my virtual assistant, she's brilliant at building relationships with PAs. So honestly, it's getting through the door. It's that, and the reason is they haven't got any time. I won't tell you the organisation, but this is a genuine story. Happened just before Easter. Doing a live 360 for somebody on an exec board, and I had the opportunity to talk to a CEO of a very large organisation that you all know in the UK. And so I've got 25, 30 minutes with this person. No, I haven't. I've got 18 minutes, right? So if you get 45 minutes with the CEO, take 30. If you get an hour, take 42. You know, never take the full amount of time, but, you know, try and nail it really quickly. Then if they love it, they'll find a time. They'll find a way to actually kind of encourage it. Anyway, I'm not working with this particular CEO, I'm working with somebody who reports into them. They got on the phone call, and the first thing they wanted to do was tell me about their views on the way the world should be, and direct me to a piece that they'd just written that's out there in the marketplace. And I was like, great, I haven't read it, I look forward to reading it. And then they went on to tell me about the person, which was great. And then we very quickly got back onto their view of the world, which was good, right? But one of the things was, their view of the world was that they wanted their team to stop being tactical, to step back, and to get off the pitch, and to operate in a more strategic and calmer way, right? I'm not lying. That's what that person said. It is a he, by the way. That's what they said. And then in the background, like within a nanosecond, I heard a phone ring, and the person said, "That's the chairman, I'm going." slammed the phone down on me. Really interesting, eh? So here we are, extolling the virtues of what the organisation I want to create. The chairman's just rung. I've got 20 more minutes on this call, but the chairman's rung, so I'm immediately picking up. So, you know, what would you guess is going on in that organisation at the moment? Yeah, a bit of chaos. I'm not going to tell you who it is because you'll laugh your heads off. But yeah, a bit of chaos going on in that organisation at the moment. You know, and I can't wait for the opportunity to sit back and hold the mirror up and say, do you remember the conversation we were having? Just wanted to kind of provide some feedback to you. You know, that's one of the things I wanted to say, actually, it leads into quite nicely, is there's that opportunity to really be straightforward with them and honest, and the things they really love that.
And sell them short.
Sell them short?
Yeah.
In what sense? Go on.
Sell a share before you down.
Oh yeah, sell them short. Well, that's if it's a share-based organisation. So that might start to, but I can't say anything. But really interesting, yeah, really interesting. So yeah, there's some of the kind of key challenges. I think then the other thing is just on a personal level, is getting over your own anxiety about being really honest and straightforward. Because I kind of want to be nice to people. I don't want to upset people. And sometimes you've got data that's not particularly nice and you have to deliver it to them. Or you've got observations like the one I've just shared with you on that phone call. You know, I will genuinely go back to that person and share with them when I get the chance to meet them, my observations. Now that's brave. Why is that brave? In some ways, it's not that brave. It's not like I'm throwing myself in Afghanistan. You know, it's like, but it's like I'll get fired by that organisation. So what? You know, that's the chance I take. And you know, for every time that I've done that and been really honest and straightforward about something or an observation, it's always worked. You know, there's a few clients that have died over the years. You know, but I think that's a natural cycle. You know, so I think that's being really honest and frank. But get your data. They're very data-driven, often, very data. Unless they're in the creative world, then it's just very different. It's good fun.
I'm going to pause you on taking another question,
Okay.
just because I'm really aware of the time.
Yeah.
But first of all, can we give Darren a huge round of applause?